Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy. Okay, everybody. We are with our new European edition. That's right, going straight to London for this one. This is a guy who I fought with many years ago, my first time I fought in London, and a really fun guy, Brad One Punch Pickett. He has that name for a reason. I'm sure we'll get into it. Not sure where this is going to go exactly, but excited to be going international. Mike, how did this come about?
Mike Brown. So whenever we have past guests, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll ask them for recommendations of people who are conversational, they're fun, and who do you guys recommend? And Mike Brown and Brad Pickett have been best friends forever. So he recommended Mike Brown, Mike Brown recommended Brad. That's how we got him. And we're going to concentrate on the cage rage years. And it's going to be good. I'm pretty excited about it, especially with somebody as colorful as Brad. All I ask is if you guys like our content, you enjoy it, the only way we can grow is if you like, share, and subscribe. These algorithms are killing us, and we need a little help. So if you guys can get us a little love, it's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, thanks. I think with Brad Pickett, hopefully we'll get, some different eyes on us from England. I think the British guys will like our content. I think we've, bought up England a lot of times when the guys fight there. We bring up the fights. You've got lore there from Lee Murray and other people. So this is our first hands-on with a British guy, Brad One Punch Pickett, a featherweight. So a little guy and a guy that, took his own path to the UFC and to the top of the game. So I'm looking forward to it, Mike.
And Chris, I really went over the cage rage tapes, like the events. Like I went over all of them. And there's some wacky stuff going on over there that, we're going to bring up with Brad. So it's just going to be a fun interview.
Absolutely.
So, like I said, like, save, share, subscribe, comment,
comment,
those things, And here he is, Brad Pickett. Without further ado.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lights Out Podcast fan members, Brad Pickett. Brad, how you doing, buddy?
Thanks. Good to see you, Chris. Thanks.
Absolutely. Now, I was in doing a little research. I found out that apparently one of your relatives a long time ago was a bare knuckle boxer. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. So when I got into any sort of formal combat sport, my mum said to me, "Oh, you got it from your granddad." He died when he was 4 years of age. Well, sorry. He died when I was 4, not him.
Okay.
That's
pretty prolific as a grandfather.
That was true. My mom would not be around. So he died when I was 4. I also be the youngest bare knuckle boxer ever. But anyway, so he died when I was 4. So I didn't really get to know him. But then I remember when I was looking into him a little bit more, my mom was telling me he'd done bare knuckle boxing. He used to work during the day as a roofer, and at night time, just to earn a bit of extra money for the family, he would do bare knuckle boxing. So when I looked at pictures of him and stuff like that, he used to wear a trilby hat, and he used to wear, I call them braces, but over in America, I think you call them suspenders. So he used to wear those. That's why for all my fights, when I used to fight, I used to come out wearing my hat and my trilby, like, things are really nice. Yeah, so here, somewhere, my old hat.
That's what I'm talking about.
My old hat and my braces, but I wore it just to pay like tribute to my granddad, basically.
So Chris, one time when you were walking out, Brad, for a UFC event, someone stole your hat on the walkout.
Yeah.
Did you ever get that hat back?
Did. I got it back quick.
Nice.
I got it back quick. Like I was angry. Yeah, that I'm not. Obviously, it really did. For me, it's like, if I'm coming out wearing a UFC hat, right? Cool, take that. But I felt violated because it's like, it was my hat I wore for years. So it was like, it was my personal thing. I found it very rude that someone would just try and take that off me. It's like, I felt I know, like, yeah, abused in a way where it's like, fans can be cool, fans can be really cool, but fans can be arseholes at times as well. With they just see you and I'll grab everything off you. You know, like if you ask me, I'm really nice. I'll give you stuff, but obviously I would never give you my hat because it has a lot of sentimental value to me. But then also when I was walking to the cage, I focus on my fight. I don't want that sort of distraction. So yeah, the security guard, the big security guard, went and got it off me straight away. So
yeah, it looked like he was going to jump in the stands and go after the guy.
Yeah, no, I would have gone in there if I wasn't getting that back. I would go in the stands to get that.
Excellent.
I felt violated.
Yeah, I love the bare knuckle connection. I had my first bare knuckle fight over in London. I loved it, and then had a couple here in the States. But I'm really excited they're bringing the sport back. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, that's the thing for me. Is like when I retired from the UFC, I was asked by Big KB in England as well to have a bare knuckle boxing match. Yeah, and for me, it's like I just thought it'd be a good little end to my story.
Yeah,
to finish on a bare knuckle boxing match. And like you, Chris, is in like I think if bare knuckle boxing was more mainstream when I was competing, I honestly think I would have been better at that. Just because my hands for boxing in MMA gloves was good, and I thought it's a lot different. Where if you're a pro boxer and you got big gloves, you're used to like shoulder rolling, and you got a big glove to protect you. A big glove is trying to hit you. Smaller gloves, you know, you got to rely a lot more on good head movement, good, you know, fast switch head movement and stuff. And yeah, I think it's completely different, you know. And I thought I would have been really good at doing that sport. But anyway, so when I retired from MMA, I got asked to do it, and I thought, you know, I'm gonna do one. And I fought for the British featherweight belt, I believe it was. And weirdly, I won by just 2 punches. I didn't even get a hit. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit. I kind of wanted to feel like it was what it'd be like. Especially if you watch my fights throughout my career, I was always in fights. You know, I could fight top ranked guys and I'd be in a good fight. I could fight a dustman and I somehow get myself in a good fight. I just seem to get myself in a fight. So when I fought this guy and I won with 2 punches, I felt in a weird way, I felt cheated. I wanted to experience getting hit with a bare knuckle, you know, but I guess it wasn't meant to be. But then also, there for me, since then, I'm just like, cool, I'm done. You know, tempted a few times, but my body wouldn't really let me, you know. And for me, it's all about motivation, where I'd have to be really motivated to do something. And the first bare knuckle boxing match for me was a challenge. So I was like, yes, I got really motivated to get in shape for that. To do it again, I don't know. It's like it had to be something that really motivated. And I'm not motivated by money. So if someone said to me, I'll offer you £1 million, of course I'd be like, yeah, great. For two or 3 weeks, and then my mind would just go off because I'm not really money oriented. So, I'd have to find some sort of motivation for me to train.
So let me ask you with the grandfather connection. I always thought you came up in bare knuckle boxing and that rugged world in England. What was your amateur stuff like? And did you experience, did you gravitate towards that world because of your grandfather? Did you see it live? And did you do amateur fights? Fighting.
I didn't start MMA until I was 26. I didn't fight. I started fight. My main sports growing up was football, which you guys called soccer. It was my main sports growing up. I always thought I was going to be a professional football player. My first experience of combat sports was boxing. But I only took up boxing to keep fit in between football. So I boxed from the age of 19 to 21, for 2 years. I ruptured my ACL on my right knee playing football, and I quit boxing. And when I was used to play for a good level of football, I had to go down a few levels and just play with my friends. But then I didn't really get back into fighting until I was 26. And because I was 26 and I went to go take a boxing again, all the boxing trainers didn't give me any attention because I was old. They would look after the young guys. So I was just in the gym and I thought, this is a bit freaking boring. I'm like, how many times am I just going to do a jab? And just limited sort of skills, isn't there, in boxing? Yet and then it's all about speed, timing, and stuff like that. So someone said to me, "Oh, why did you try this mixed martial arts?" And then I'm like, "All right, give it a go." And I kind of just fell in love with the sport, learning how to choke someone out and stuff like that. It's quite interesting.
So your first fight that we have on record is August 14, 2004. It was on an event called the Full Contact Fight Series against Lee Curtis. And it's a fantastic promotion, like on paper. I don't know what it was like fighting for them, but you had Dan Hardy, and the main event would feature Dan Hardy, and the co-main event was Paul Daly. Why don't you kind of bring us through your first fight and when you knew this sport was going to be something that was going to be permanent in your life?
Well, honestly, I never thought the sport would be permanent in my life because it wasn't a sport back when I was doing it. It was like a bit of fun. It wasn't really like a legitimate career path like it is for a young, inspiring athlete. If you was good at sports in my country, you'd go play football. You go play, if you wanted to earn money for sports, you go do that, or boxing. You would go earn money down that route. Where MMA, you'd be like, well, it was not even like a career path. I carved the career out of it myself, but towards the later end of my life, you know, like when I got into WEC and UFC, when I started earning money. Before then, it was just a cool job, you know, just something cool to do. So we'll go back on that show. That I remember signing up for that fight. I remember I think it was supposed to be fighting at what 68 kilos was the catch weight, but no, it wasn't. It was 70 kilos. It was supposed to be a lightweight. Well, it was a lightweight, but I weighed just under that. I weighed 69 kilos, and then I trained really hard for it. I was a bit fat and out of shape, and I literally dropped down. I was like weighing like 64 kilos, and he was weighing he weighed 70 kilos. Wow! And I remember fighting him, and he was so much bigger than me, but he was more of a grappler. But I think he saw me and being so small, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna stand with this little guy." And then I knocked him out in like, I think it was like 40 seconds by the time I finished the fight. So that was over pretty quick. But that was a really cool show. They even had Jose Aldo on that show as well. Not the same kind as me, but there were quite a few of the old fighters that fought on there years ago, yeah.
Right. So from there, you get the bug. You jump on your first appearance in Cage Rage, first of many, I should say, against Stuart Grant, where you have a 17-second knockout in the first round. And watching that fight, it seemed as if you were a pretty big ticket seller.
Yeah. I did. I had a lot of, you know, I'm a friendly, nice guy. I had a lot of people, and also it was pretty cool. I mean, I had a lot of people, like friends I played football with and that sort of stuff, a lot of different circles, I say. And they're like, "Oh man, this is cool. He's gonna fight in a cage or something." You know, so I did have a big family. I used to probably sell 200 plus tickets quite easily before a fight. You know, quite a bit. Then it'd always be round about that, but it'd be like sometimes it'd be one group of people couldn't make it, but a new group would come, and then it would always vary and stuff like that. But I used to take a big vocal crowd with me, yeah. And the weird one of this is my mum never. I had like only 10. No, I had 11 amateur boxing matches. I was 10-1 as an amateur. But my mum would never come and watch me fight, ever. My dad and my brother did. But my mum actually came and watched me do my second cage fight.
Really?
Watch me. She's just like this in the crowd the whole time. She came to the event, so that was fun.
Yeah, my mom never made it to one of mine either. She didn't like it. Real quick, how did you get who gave you the nickname and when did that come about? Because I always think it's interesting. You can't give yourself a nickname. Somebody's got to give it to you.
That came from boxing, because when I was actually boxing, when I was 19, when I was 19, 21, I was quite small. I walked around about 56 kilos, and I was 19. But we were boxing with 10-ounce gloves and headgear on, and I was knocking people out in boxing. So I always had that weight class. So I was just a banger. I wasn't as technical as most guys, but I would just throw hard, and especially back in those sort of days, they'll look after the fighters a little more. If I drop one of them, they'll just call the fight off straight away. So I think my first four or five boxing matches didn't go past the first round.
So you heard Brad say he sold about 200 tickets every single time he fought. So a local promoter is not going to let a guy like that get out of his wheelhouse. No. So he fights from Cage Rage 9, jumps on Cage Rage 10, where he experiences his first loss. And this is, like, in our opinion, very important to see like how a fighter reacts to that when you fought Chris Freeborn. So Brad, at the time, you're obviously 2-0 with an extensive amateur boxing background. And Freeborn is riding around 7-11. The thing is I think Brad has some people kind of around him that might not be giving him good information, because your instructor is actively telling everybody he's almost a purple belt. He's almost a purple belt in skill. So why don't you bring us through that third fight? Because I've got notes on that as well.
You have like points in your career, right? And there's been a few points throughout my career that change you. And this, and I always say this, so cliche, you learn more from the loss than you do from win. 100%. 100%. Because when you win, you don't think about it. But when you lose, you analyze everything. What did I eat the night before the fight? What did I drink in the morning? What you analyze everything. What color socks was I wearing? You just kind of analyze everything. So, but when I fought him, like I say, I came from a boxing background. My first two fights collectively didn't last more than a minute. I was fighting a guy who was 7-11. I'm like, mate, this guy's just gonna get smashed in my head. So I'm like, yeah. Went out there, went to obviously throw a few punches. He took me down. I was very green on the floor, nowhere near purple belt. I don't know what's on about. Yeah. No. I'm a purple belt now. So like I was very, very green, right? And but I was tough, right? So he put me in a triangle, and I just, as you do, pick him up, boom, slam him out, get out of there, get back to your feet, mate. He gets back to his feet. I'll go to throw a punch, he takes me down again. I'm like, takes me down again. So then I'm like, all right, cool. So basically, the first round, he just kept them, wasn't a hard punch, but just like hitting me, and like just annoying the shit out of me. But then I started getting tired. I'm like, oh, yeah, fuck, I'm tired now. And like, then he got to the second round, and I'm like, oh, this guy's still here. Shit, well, I better knock him out. Boom, back on my back again. Then he puts me in another triangle. I pick him up, slam him. Can't get out of it. Just staying there. I'm just being like, just an idiot, being tough, weren't tapping. He's elbowing my head, punching me, elbowing me. And
broke his nose.
I still wouldn't tap. There was blood trickling down my face, everything.
Horrible.
I remember my arm being here, I just seeing blood trickling down my arm. And the ref stopped it in the end. It was a TKO that, and even when the ref stopped the fight, I ended up headbutting the canvas, looking at him going, "Well, you stopped it for?" Really angry, fucking hell. But I was getting pasted, right? So, but I remember, I mean, what I say is the biggest learning curve for me, because not that I underestimate someone, I just didn't train how you should train, and it just. Well, I remember I was so badly bruised, not because I got hit or hurt hard, just from collectively strikes, loads of punches. I remember I went to put my hat on, and it wouldn't fit on my head. Oh, it would not get on my head. It would not get on my head. Right, wow. I had like loads of bumps there, and then I just remember going back home and like looking at myself, and I'm like, I'm never gonna look at this again. I'm not. This is not. And see, some people you sink or swim. So for me, I was like, nah. I'm too competitive. That's my problem. I'm like, there's no way this is happening again like that. And I just went, right, I need to go learn jiu-jitsu. And I started learning jiu-jitsu and started doing that. And yeah, so that kind of like there's been a few points like that throughout my career that really changed me. And got me motivated, you know. So
yeah, Brad, there's a few instances where Miguel, I, and Chris will talk, saying, you know, there's every once in a while there's a guy that's throwing a party because the UFC is on, and oh my God, I fought that guy. Oh, you know, I happened to beat him. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that or not. And you know, they have all their friends and family over, and it's just accidentally you're on TV. Chris Freeborn, we believe, has probably done it at least once or twice in your career.
I wanted to fight him. Obviously, when I started getting a bit, I started getting a lot better quickly because I changed how I train. I wanted that rematch for a long time. Please let me do this rematch.
Hey, I got a question for you. How much did you get paid for the lumpy head? How much was that fight? How much do you remember?
$200.
So Cage Rage at this point kind of
I
starts.
I earned more money through ticket sales than I did through.
Okay, that's cool. Okay.
Oh, you probably made at least $1,000 on ticket sales. You guys have no idea the pop that he gets in the crowd. He was an instant fan favorite from the first event that I could find of his online.
Oh,
So
we'll get to that.
Yeah, so Cage
we know
Rage
about him.
Cage Rage starts turning up the volume a little bit. Like they're doing their production a little more. They're being a little more ostentatious. They were even throwing around like, you know, the nail in the coffin for events at this time is we're going to beat the UFC. We're better than them. You know, it's the absolute just death call of an organization, and the whispers are starting to come around. So now they've got all of these guys that are young, up-and-coming talent, and they have them do pre-fight promos. And in Cage Rage 11, he fights Aaron Blackwell. And Aaron Blackwell, it looks like a hostage tape, you know, where he's like blinking out SOS, like help me, I'm captive. And he says, whoever wins. And that's it. That's his pre-fight promo.
He's right. He's right.
I mean, he's not lying. But
Brad, I wish you all the best. And whoever wins.
It was almost as if we don't want a blood war here. Okay, we're gonna end this tonight. We don't want generations of our families settling this. Let's just kind of figure this out between the two of us. It was fantastic.
I've been like, cut, we're redoing that one. Give me something else.
I'd get a writer.
Can you read this?
I bet he sold less tickets than you too.
Yes.
Yeah, well, a lot of people did that anyway. But what was wrong about the Cage Rage I liked, they actually does really good promo videos. They've always done it. No shows really do them now. Even the UFC don't do them. You know, you remember like before, back in the old days, you used to have like the promo, but before the fights happen, guys talk about each other. Even that doesn't happen anymore. But yeah, I remember the Cage Rage promos because Dave O'Donnell would get you to do some funny stuff. But I used to enjoy the weigh-ins and have quite a lot of fun with that. Enjoy that sort of stuff.
So the difference between this fight, Brad, and your last fight against Chris Freeborn is I believe Aaron Blackwell was probably the better athlete of the two of you. And when you were saying
most was.
For sure, but you said I needed that rematch against Freeborn. I knew I was better than him. I think there were points in your career, especially when you were, you know, moving up the ladder where, you know, Blackwell's like, wait a minute, wait, I need that one back. I want to run that one back. And the interesting thing is he had Ricky Moore and Alex Reed in the corner. Moore was a former Cage Rage champion. And Pickett is wearing a Kun Tao shirt. It appears that you're doing traditional martial arts at this time for your main training. How close am I to reality?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not really reality. For me, back then I was still very green. So I joined this place called Elite Fighting System, which is quite funny, but it's very primal, you know, like, you just kind of made our own stuff up kind of thing and watched tapes and stuff. And it was very, it was very prehistoric. But going back to that fight there, for me, how I saw it, because he beat Chris Freeborn. So I'm like, well, if I can't get Chris Freeborn, I just beat the guy who just beat Chris Freeborn.
Yeah.
How about that? That's how I said it in my head. you know.
So at this point, after you lose a fight, did you take up wrestling? Because you knew that was kind of the way that people were going to try and beat you. They knew your hands were good. You have power. You knock people out. So do you kind of figure out, hey, I know you talked about the jiu-jitsu, but were you thinking about wrestling too? And because that's tough to pick up at the age of like 27 or so. It's tough to become a good wrestler.
Well, wrestling does not exist in England. Well, back then it didn't. It was like, it didn't. And for me, I didn't know about wrestling really until I knew about it, but I never learned proper wrestling until I was the cage rage champ. And then I went out to American Top Team. When I went out to American Top Team, I met Mike Brown. Me and Mike Brown became best friends. We're best friends still to this day. And then he showed me the ways of wrestling and what wrestling is about. Not just wrestling. I remember when I went to American Top Team, I saw Mike Brown. And I was like, "All right, Mike, how's it going? What's your name?" He goes, "Cool, right?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "What weight do you fight?" He goes, I go fight at featherweight. He goes, "What weight do you fight?" He goes, "Featherweight." And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "I'll fight featherweight." I'm like, No. We what 66 kilos? Yeah. He goes, "Oh, what do you weigh now?" He goes, "Oh, I weigh like 76. You know, whatever he was." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, I weighed 66 kilos, 566 kilos. I was like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "These Americans are cheating. What's going on here?"
Now let me ask you. It took the UFC, right around that time, 2003. I don't know exactly, but there was the whole WEC time. Were you fighting as a lightweight in England? Did Cage Rage actually have a featherweight? Because that would be a feather.
I was fighting at featherweight. I had fought at lightweight, but I fought at featherweight mainly. But I weighed less than featherweight. I used to walk around 64 kilos.
Yeah.
I fight at featherweight. There wasn't bantamweight when it came, but when I first started, there wasn't bantamweight. It's like.
Gotcha.
A bit like early UFC days, like Chris would say, where there was 155 pounds in the UFC, but it wasn't really a weight class, and then it became a weight class, there was they had those fights, but didn't really, that's why they called Eve Edwards was uncrowned 55 champ at one point, it's kind of there wasn't really, people fought there, but it wasn't a developed weight class, It's the same back in England.
So, on the independent grind is what we like to refer to it as. There's certain benchmarks that you have to hit in order to be really considered a veteran fighter. And one of them is last minute replacement locker room switches. You've got to have your opponent just yanked out from underneath you and have somebody you don't even know who they are put in front of you, and then you have to fight that person. Very important. It's very important. And that's what took place in Cage Rage 12 when you fought Jordan Miller. I guess you were supposed to fight a Stephen Millward.
You know what? Your knowledge is better than mine. Because now you said that, I'm like, that's right. Right. But I could tell you that right now. You said that, I'm like, yeah, he was a replacement. I didn't realize. I had no clue. Yeah, you're right. I was fighting post-fight with Stephen Millward, and I just remember that now. She said that, but yeah, and he was a late replacement. Yeah.
So what were your feelings like dealing with this situation? You've obviously sold a whole bunch of tickets. You've got a huge crowd coming. You're trying to take this as serious as possible. And now you're running into opponents that aren't as serious as yourself, and now you're getting last-minute replacements.
To be honest, back then I didn't even look at opponents. It didn't really affect me that much, like, whatever, because there wasn't that much footage around. So it's not like now where someone's not even at an amateur fight and people are searching their Instagram to see how they're hitting pads. It's like back then it's like, whatever. When I used to box, you used to turn up and they go, "You find that guy?" You're like, "All right, cool." You never got all this. I didn't have a little study of this guy. You never had that. So for me, how I said it throughout my whole career, even when I was in the UFC, because I had a lot of replacements in the UFC, I never trained for an opponent. I trained for a date. I trained for a date to give me a date, and whoever who's there in front of me, I will fight that person. don't get me wrong. I would look at the person I'm fighting, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, this could change. So I'm not gonna. So I just always try in every training camp, just better myself, get better, improve where my weaknesses are. You know, rather than focusing so much on some guy which could change in the last minute. Then you're like, oh God, like Conor when you're saying, I was training for Manny Pacquiao, and then I go, whatever. You know, like a fight's a fight. You know, you should be prepared to fight no matter what. You know,
so Brad, I think you're 3-1 in cage rage at this time, and you're selling so many tickets. And there's other fighters that have more fights in your weight class than yourself, but you're selling so many tickets. The promoter goes, all right, we got a vacant title. We got you covered. We need you to show up, and you're going to fight Ozzy Haluk. So regionally speaking, well, I should say on the regional scene, that cage rage belt holds a lot of weight at this time. Like it's the uncrowned champion of Europe. Like, and there's no arguing. Like TKO was to Canada, cage rage was to Europe at that time. So Ozzy Haluk, it's an interesting ending. Would you mind walking us through this?
Well, so basically for that event alone, they introduced a thing called an open guard rule, where obviously it wasn't quite like Pride, where you can kick and stomp the head whenever you wanted. They kind of brought this rule in where if someone's playing on their back and chooses not to get back up to their feet, the referee can raise his hand and go, it's open guard, and once he does that, you can kick, stomp, you can do what you want to the person on the floor.
Was that a new rule?
That was a new rule, and they brought it in that for that show. It's called the open guard rule. Right? But you couldn't stomp on the head if they're too close to the cage. It was when they're in the middle and they choose to stay on the back and not get up. Yeah.
So Brad lands a jumping head stomp in the second round and puts the guy into like next week. But the interesting thing was, like, we started this conversation with, you were a big football person, a big soccer person. And this fight featured Manchester versus London in regards to the opponents. And it had that hooligan feel in regards to listening to that audience.
Also, the thing with me is, like, he's one of what I say the prime examples for me in my career, where technically he's by far superior in every area, apart from this and this. I'm like, you're not beating me. Like, and people don't give this and this enough credit. Like, I just broke that. He hit me with these best shots, and I was like, come on, let's go. And I broken mentally. And then this week, when I just would not go away, he gassed trying to beat me up, and I kept on coming like a zombie. And I ended up hitting him with some big shots, dropped him a couple of times. And I remember him being on the floor, after I dropped him, and him just laying there and I kind of not wanting to get up. And then I jumped up, done the head stop, right? And I saw in his face when I did it, he was just like, get me out of here, I'm done. Like, this guy's jumping on my head now. What's going on? So, like,
Well, Brad, I think it's like you're talking about. I mean, this as well as I do. You get up to UFC level. Everybody's a good athlete. So it's that mental toughness. Harder way to say that mental toughness is what makes that separates the fighters, I think. And I've seen a lot of people who aren't as like technically sound, but they're grinders and they can take it. And like those are my favorite people to watch. But I think that's what separates the people at the highest level.
You were 100% one of those fighters that I love to watch.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It's awesome.
That you was in a fight, no matter what point of the fight was, the opponent you were fighting knew they were in a fight. Like that's why I want like. You're always there. You're always dangerous. It could be a tough fight, but you're not gonna fall over for someone in any way whatsoever. Like you fight to the dying breath. And a lot of respect to people like that. What I call people like yourself, what I call a fighter's fighter, where a fighter appreciates someone who fights like yourself. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. That means a lot.
So you dealt with length at that point, where Haluk was picking you apart from the outside, and you would, because he was so long and tall, and you would follow him in and just meet him with power. So you haven't really fought a really strong grappler at this time. And I think if I had to pinpoint an exact fight when you started training with American Top Team, obviously you had already talked about Mike Brown. It was either for this fight or right after, because you started announcing it when you had the announcers, preface yourself with the American Top Team name. And when you fought against Robbie Olivier, who very, very strong grappler, and it's kind of a controversial fight.
I think I fought my first international fight. I fought a guy called Hiroyuki Abe. I think in between that, before that, I think.
No, Hayuki's right after.
Ah, okay, yeah. So yeah, I think I just started going out to American Top Team after I won the belt. That was it, because Cage Rage wanted their champions to be able to compete on an international level. And they understood where they need to go get better training, because in England it was such a green sport then. There wasn't that many people to train with. So I went over to American Top Team, and I found out quick. This what surprised me, right? When I went out to American Top Team, and I'm training with Mike Brown and stuff, and I'm like, well, I get them down on the floor, and then they keep getting back up. And I'm like, oh, what? He goes, what do you mean? I'm like, well, get them in side control right here. I'm in side control, and I can't stop them getting back out. He goes, you got to get the underhook. And I'm like, the what? He goes, you got to get the underhook. I'm like, what's an underhook? And then he's like, what? And like, it looked at me like, you don't know. It's like, yeah, it's like equivalent of saying for grappling, you don't know what underhook is. It's like in boxing, what's a jab? It's literally, yeah. And I'm like, he's looked at me like I was strange, and I'm like, holy shit, I didn't even know what underhook was. It was quite embarrassing. But then I remember when I went to American Top Team, it reminded me very familiar of when I first started MMA. It's like they made me feel like a dog shit. Like I am poo, right? I went there, I'm the champ. I'm the Cage Rage champ.
Did you bring your belt?
Oh, what's that?
Did you bring your belt to the American Top Team?
No, I'm not like that.
That's good.
I'm not that guy.
That's good. That's good.
Definitely not that guy. But I have got the belt.
There we go.
That's what matters.
That's a good looking belt.
I'm telling you, this is something we need. The fighters in the interviews need to bring props, Brad. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brad.
Hey, I do got a quick question, Brad.
That's my BKB belt.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, so Brad, I don't even know if I'm allowed to ask this or if I'm going to offend, because we're Americans. We don't know, but
ask me whatever you want. I don't get offended.
Are you a traveler? Are you from like that? Because we hear about Tyson Fury and we hear about Billy Joe Saunders and stuff. And those are the rugged guys over there. Is that in your background?
No, this is quite funny. Well, so a lot of people associate me from my nickname and my hat to Mickey One Punch from Snatch. Right? I get it a lot. I'm from the East End of London. I'm from the East End. I'm not a traveller, sort of thing. Gypsy blood's not in me. But fighting spirit is, I mean, like I always said it throughout my career. I'm a very nice guy, right? I'm a family man and stuff like that. Fighting for me is not natural. It's like I don't want to go and hit someone in the face for no reason. I always fought, but I never fought. As I say this, I never fought because I hated what was in front of me. I fought because I loved what was behind me. My friends, my family, my coaches, my supporters. I've never had any awesome animosity towards my opponent. He was just merely an object. But when I got into the cage and I fought, I was just super, super competitive that I would die rather than lose, that's what made me get, I was quite aggressive when I fought because I wasn't losing. But it was never any ill being in it. I never really got any, I wasn't in that sort of trash talking sort of way. I'm very respectful to any of my opponents, because I always say this, I respect everyone who does that sport to whatever level, because it's not easy to get in there in front of people and fight someone in front of people who's trained to fight you. It's so mentally challenging. So, and that, don't want to go digression, but this is why I got into the sport, because growing up I was a very sporty kid. I was good at football, good at cricket, good at basketball, believe it or not, even though I'm small. good at rugby. I was good at sports. But most of the sports growing up were team sports. So in team sports, you can be the best player and lose the match. You can be the worst player and win. So there's nothing more challenging than a one-on-one sport. So that could even be tennis. So a tennis match between you and one individual is very mentally challenging. So now, for me being, like I say, like a very competitive athlete, I saw that and I'm like, okay, I'm not playing tennis, but I had that same mentality where I'm fighting one guy on my own. But now I had the physical aspect into this, where it's the grappling, the wrestling, the boxing. For me, it's like, there's not a tougher sport you could do out there. Any other sport. Boxing, yes, tough, but MMA is tougher. There's more aspects to it. Like rugby is a very tough sport, but yeah, again, you could be, or American football, it's a very tough physical sport, but you could be the best player, lose a match. Worst player, win a match. So you can hide behind teammates. Where one-on-one sport, you can't do that. That's why for me, to this day, no one could argue better than me that I think MMA is the hardest sport as an individual, to do physically and mentally.
Brad, one thing I always think about is, when you play football or soccer, any of those, when you get done with practice, you go home, it's over. That it's never over when you're with MMA. First of all, the weight cut, the food you have to eat, it's a 24/7 lifestyle, and it's constantly taken over your head because you're about to go in there and fight another individual, and millions of people might be watching. So it never leaves your thought process, really. And like I said, that's why I think it's all encompassing. It takes over your life in many aspects.
Yeah, and also after the fight, win, lose, or whatever, you can't sleep. You're looking through social media. You're looking this. You're on a high because you won, or you're down because you lost. I mean, it stays with you for a long time. It stays with you for a long time, and that is for me. Like I say, fighting for me is, even though I say it's such a physical sport and it is a very physically demanding, but for me it's 90% mental, 10% physical. Because you see it all the time. You see people in the gym who are absolute fucking beasts, and they go and fight, and you think, who the hell is that guy?
Yeah.
And then you see the opposite. I've seen people in the gym who are just not good at all, and they go and fight, and you're like, who is that guy? You're like, some people, the lights come on, and they're like, poof, and sometimes the light comes on, they're like, it's like, yeah.
I was just about to ask you that, because we all know we call them gym fighters, guys who are so good there, but that's when you talk about that mental aspect, and you get a special athlete. I mean, there's a lot of different things that make somebody a great high level fighter. They have to be athletic, have to be willing to put in the time. They got to work hard at the gym, but then you also have to have the things you're talking about, the guy who shines when the pressure's on, and that's that mental toughness aspect. I think some people have it and some people don't, no matter how great of an athlete they are.
Yeah, I 100%. Going back is the mental side of competition. Like there's so many times in the gym I'll be training someone who's so good, but I'm like, in my head, if I fought you, I'll beat you 100%. Yeah. I mean, I say all the time, I'll be like, you know it. If I fought you for real, when it's real, you're gonna lose. Because just how I am, throughout my career, I've said it a few times, where most people I fought were better than me, in my eyes, technically. But I'm like, in my head, you're not beating me. You're not beating me. Or you did beat me, but it wasn't for the one of me trying. It wasn't. I never lay over for any man. I made it hard work.
Yep. So at this point, are you kind of splitting time between American Top Team and being back in London, or was it just every now and again you go to America? I mean, where were you doing most of your training, and who would corner you for fights? Will it say your guys from England?
Yeah, what way? Once I got to going out to American Top Team, this is what I need to do. Fuck. If I want to do anything, I need to be here. Now I'm learning so much more. And so I didn't move out there. I used to go there before fight camps. I used to come back, but going back to the sport where it's very green, I wasn't earning the money, so I used to go back home, work, and before fight, I'd take a few weeks off, go to American Top Team, calculate how much money I would earn from my fight and how many tickets I would sell to kind of counteract it. And then, okay, right, fight, boom, put the money in the bank, go work out the next fight. When can I pay to go to America? And that's what I did. I went straight back to work as a laborer, so I could take time off, pick up bricks and stuff like that, work physically when I needed to, and when I go, oh, see you later, guys, I'm off for a fight now, go away to a fight. So always, my money I got, I always invested back into myself and my training. And for me, if I grew up in America, 1,000% I would have wrestled, because I enjoyed the wrestling side of fighting. I prefer wrestling than any other. But I like to box wrestle. So, but I don't think there was one opponent in my UFC career that I didn't take down. I mean, it's weird. People, I remember one time it's quite funny, when I was in the WEC, I fought, which card was it? It was a card where Jose Aldo fought for Uriah Faber, right? It was like that weird WCP pay-per-view sort of card. And I fought Demetrius Johnson in that card, right? And I completely out-wrestled him. I took him down 10 times in one fight. And I remember when I went back to the change room, Chad Mendy came in, when did you wrestle? I'm from England, mate. I never wrestled. So it's quite funny. Like, oh, really? Yeah. But for me, again, if I said that though, if I would have had a wrestling match with Demetrius Johnson, he would have beat me 100%. Because MMA wrestling is different, 100%. And I learned how to MMA wrestle. I learned how to throw an overhand right to get in or left. I learned how to set up my strikes with my takedowns. If I had a straight wrestling match with anyone, they'll beat me in a straight wrestling match. But if I get you worried about my hands, you've got to be covering up here. You're letting me get in on your hips now, so that I'll take you down. So and also, I was good at cage wrestling. So if you think about cage wrestling, that's in no other sport. No other sport has cage. No, the wrestlers never had the wrestler against a cage. Jiu-jitsu never had to roll up against a cage. The boxing never had a cage. It had parameters that were like a ring. So that the striking is similar, but wrestling and judo, all that stuff never had that sort of boundary. So cage wrestling is only what do you call it? The same thing as
So. Now with that, real quick, one follow-up question. I'll let you go, Mike. The cage was not like any of the cage I was ever in. It was made. It was like made out of a netting. It was like a netting. So was that? That made it different. Did you find it different when you had to cage wrestle against that than against a real cage? It was just different to me.
Honestly, I didn't notice.
You don't remember that?
Yeah, I remember it now you say it, but for me, it didn't make a difference to me because I fight. I mean, it's always when I fight. I can fight in a cage, a car park, a gym, a phone booth.
Television.
For me, I don't really think about the environment. So, but now you say, I remember it was mesh. But
it was just the only time I fought there. The only time I saw it. It was weird for me. I was like, whoa.
But I remember, like, obviously when you fight, I've trained in cages, and I'm like, this sucks ass. It hurts.
For sure.
But when you're fighting, you don't feel that because the adrenaline's taking over. Same like when you must have had this before, Chris, like mat burns. You're like,
oh yeah,
man, it's so sore. Like the coarse kind of the vinyl, the coarse kind of canvas, like just always like give me like to burn my skin off my knees and my legs if I ever done a shot or anything like that. And they used to sting like shit the next day, But I never felt it during fighting.
So we had mentioned benchmarks in regards to things that you need to kind of get through in order to be a veteran fighter such as yourself. Another one is an international opponent. So we had mentioned his name earlier. On April 22nd, 2006, you fight Hiroyuki Abe. At this time, you're training with an American top team, I think pretty much full time. And this was the first time we ever saw you put on a sprawl and brawl clinic, especially if somebody with international fanfare. How was your head going into this fight?
Good. I mean, I just started learning how to wrestle and to defend stuff, and I was just like buzzing. You know, it was like I was cool. I'm learning all this new sort of stuff, and I started to feel I was finding a sort of fighting style where I was a boxer wrestler kind of thing. You know, I kind of found my sort of style. And when I say boxer wrestler, I used to love Mike Tyson, so I used to always love the loopy shots, that, you know, getting on the inside, head movement, and that sort of stuff. So I kind of adopted that sort of style with my striking. And I remember fighting him. I remember that he was. I was nervous about him as an actual opponent because I think he just beat Picanio, whatever his name was, and he was like ranked number 2 in the world at my weight class, at bantamweight, over in Japan. Obviously, he was a massive underdog, and in hindsight, looking back at it, it was like a lucky win, if you call it a lucky win, like Matt Serra versus GSP, you know. But sometimes it's like that's lady luck's on your side. But I remember thinking about him. Oh, this is a tough international opponent.
Did Abe make weight? Did Abe make weight for that? Did Abe make weight for that fight? He looked considerably larger than yourself.
What's that?
Did your opponent make weight for that fight? He looked much larger than that of yourself.
Probably, I don't know. Maybe he missed weight. You know, for me, I can't remember that. You probably got more knowledge than me if you missed weight. But
it's huge.
Yeah, but again, going back to these, I was finding 66 kilos still.
So you have not cutting yet weight yet here. You're not really cutting weight.
No, I don't cut weight. I'm walking on. I got to the stage where I started to soon put on muscle and then cut to 66, just for doing correct training. Does that make sense? I put on a little bit of muscle and then I would cut to 66. But before, I just walk on a scale. You know, the first time I ever had to cut weight was in the WC when I went to 61 kilos. That's the first time I ever had to cut weight.
Were the people in American top team saying, "Hey, brother, you gotta cut some weight"? Were they telling you that, or how, you know? I mean,
yeah, there was, but there's 2 things why I didn't. One, KJ didn't have a 61 kilos.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. And 2, I was ranked number 1 in Europe at 66 kilos.
Why lose weight? Yeah.
So like I was ranked number 1 in Europe at 66 kilos. And there wasn't a 61 kilos thing. But in my mind, knowing where I wanted to be, where I wanted to go to the WEC, Mike Brown being my very close friend, being at 66 kilos, and I'm like, you are fucking massive. I don't fight people like you. I will go down the weight. Also, I don't want to be in the same weight class as my mate, just in case if anything happened with like that. And also, he actually went on to win the belt anyways in that weight class. So for me, it was like I'll always go down to bantamweight.
Now, Brad, with Hiroyuki Abe, so here's an international opponent, as you mentioned. Like he's coming off a win over Pequeño Nogueira, who at the time may have been, you know, pound for pound one of the top 3 fighters in the world, or at some point was.
Do you remember his name more than I did? That's the guy. Yeah.
You know,
they're good.
At the end of his career, he became, you know, more of a workhorse, and people underrate him. He also bought, if I recall, at times they let him do, like, you know, come in with a samurai sword, you know, before the show. Did you get the full feel of fighting an international opponent with ring entrance and stuff like that?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it was cool. I was just really excited to fight because I was a big fan, obviously, as everyone was back then, in his pride and stuff like that. So it was just nice to fight like a Japanese opponent, you know, just like, oh, this is cool, you know. So I was nervous. But also, one thing leading into that fight, you know, I actually remember training 1 week or 2 weeks before. I ended up messing around, punching the floor by accident, and I fucking messed up my metacarpal, and I went and I got a cortisone in my hand to fight, which was fine in the first round, but I think if maybe watch the fight back, but in the second round it started to really hurt. I'll be hitting I hit him, and you see me go that with my hand, and then I'm just throwing elbows. So you see, like in the fight, I was just elbowing the shit out of him against the cage because my hand was so bad, you know. So yeah, I remember that.
So he goes from that international fight to a rematch against Robbie Olivier. So the first fight was, you know, it was controversial because Brad got a controversial win in many people's eyes. And then he gets a rematch against Robbie, which is controversial for other reasons. I'm not sure my line of vision is going to match up with yours, so I'd rather let you go first. But you kind of got done bogus in that fight. Would you mind walking us through the rematch?
In what way? What do you mean?
With Robbie Olivier.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got beat fair and square, to be honest. Yeah, it sucked. It took a lot of things. For me, I always go, like, mentally, fighting is very important. So you have to be, in my eyes, mentally going into that fight now. I would not have took that fight, but I don't think nothing away from him beating me. But if I look back now, because my mum died leading into that fight.
Sorry.
Right? Yeah. So, but for me, I was like, no, I'm still gonna fight. I'm gonna do it for my mother. I'm gonna do it, like that kind of thing. And I'm like, this may fuel me, but it kind of did the opposite. Like when I was training and something wasn't going my way, I'd break down and get upset. I'd start crying, and I was an emotional wreck, basically. So when to this, in hindsight, you'd be like, I know that now. So at that time, I thought, you look at someone like, it works in different ways, where someone like Michael Chiesa was in the Ultimate Firehouse. His dad died. He left the Ultimate Firehouse, buried his dad, came back in and won it. Boom. So it worked for him. For me, it did not work. You know, like I was mentally not. I remember even within the fight, things started not going my way, which a fight's a fight. You're not going to get things your whole way the whole time anyway. And I just started getting angry. And for me, I'm not an emotional fighter. So when I was getting emotional, getting angry, like, come on, you pussy, stop fighting, stop grappling with me, let's fight. And like, I was getting angry, and my mind was elsewhere. And I kind of like just was in a real shitty mood. And, so me, but then they say you live and learn from life experiences. Later on in my career, I was getting ready to fight in Bellator, believe it or not, against a guy called Sami Aziz. I never fought in Bellator in the end, but I was getting ready to fight in Bellator against a really tough Swedish opponent called Sami Aziz. And my dad died. So I'm like, oh, fine. I'm not fighting. I know what my experience is. I pulled out the fight, and it was back then it was like awesome. Like Bellator, brilliant, you know, like it was like a great opportunity, but I pulled out. And then when I pulled out fight, then I got the call by the WEC. So every cloud has a silver lining and stuff. So it wasn't meant to be. And I'm glad that I didn't fight in Bellator in the end, you know.
So in the second Robbie Olivier fight, there's several instances where I had like a lot of issues with, like as a fan of the sport, not even as of yourself, just as somebody that is impartial and watching it. And in essence, Brad talks about how emotional he is. And he comes out and he comes rearing at Olivier. And within about the first 15 seconds, Brad is center ring, fully mounted by Robbie. And Robbie scoots him over to the side of the cage, where every single time Brad goes to reverse the position, Robbie grabs the cage to maintain his position on top of Brad. And that happens probably 6 different times. And the referee is just, all the referee does is gives a warning. Hey, don't do that again. Hey, don't do that again. Over and over and over again. And Brad, in the first round, spits out one of his teeth because that's how bad the ground and pound is, while Robbie is just grabbing to the fence in order to gain the advantage. And you're not even like caring or have a concern about that, I think, because of the emotional state that you had said you were in.
Funny enough about my tooth as well, I spat it out and it landed on Stephen Quadro's commentary desk, and he gave me the fight. He gave me the tooth at the end of the fight. You know,
a fight professional.
So from there, all right, Cage Rage is getting a big name for itself. They're they're kind of peacocking. They're showing off. They're kind of looking at us. And other people are coming into the marketplace. And they don't have anybody under long-term contract because they're the biggest event in Europe. You know, maybe they don't want to spend the legal. And you fight 2 hours away from your house in Petersboro in the Intense Fighting Challenge against Bret Lee.
Yeah.
Was this one of those events where they were overpaying and just trying to take the talent from Cage Rage? And
No,
you just couldn't pass on that?
I was very good friends with David Donald and that from Cage Rage. So I just said to him, hey, look, people have approached me to fight on the show. I used to live in Peterborough back when I was younger. So like I said, oh, and they've asked me to fight there. You okay with me fighting there? And they went, well, yeah, if you want, if it doesn't interfere, let's look at dates. Yeah, cool, fine. So they let me go fight there. So I asked their permission. Honestly, if they said to me, look, guys, I prefer you not fight there. Because Cage Rage did so much for me. Our loyalty, I would go, okay, cool. But they said to me, hey, no worries, you could go fight. So that's all I went and I fought there in a local show. Can't remember, you tell me the guy's name, but yeah.
Yeah, so
Brad, hold on real quick. Brad, do you have management at this time? Is somebody getting in your fights? Or are you doing this yourself? Who's representing you?
I don't know. I think Cage Rage kind of represented me in a way, you know, in a strange way, because Dave O'Donnell, he helped me out a lot. He got me a fight in BoDog. He got me a fight in K1 Dynamite. So like he let me, because his show would get approached by other shows about can we come with a couple of guys, and he used to always put my name forward as being one of the better guys from Cage Rage, you know.
Cool. I would hope you got you good paydays. Less than about 2 weeks after that, you fight on House of Pain, Cage Fever 7. There's 12 bouts on the card, only one of which went past the first round. So it was kind of like on the surface level, it looks like money grabs, like big guy throwing his money around, not a lot of knowledge in regards to the sport. Cage Rage just going, well, let me send you our highest paid fighters, let them get their wins, take your money, sell a few tickets, not as many as they would for us. And Miguel, after that fight, he gets on your radar with BoDog. I mean, Brad, as I'm sure you know, Miguel was the president of BoDog Fight, and you lined him up against Gilbert Sims, who was huge. He was a huge fighter that looked like he had about 30 pounds on Brad. Miguel, how does that fight come about?
Well, obviously I was asked to go find BoDog, 100%. A great opportunity to go to Costa Rica for 2 weeks, where to do like it was like a fight show. It was awesome. It was like they had. Did you find BoDog, Chris?
No, I did not. I mean, I was under UFC contract then, and Miguel was mad at me, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, but they had a lot of good fights. And at that time, I think they had 30 fights, 10 fights one day, 10 fights the other day, 10 fights. And we were just everyone was just all this thing. And I remember, mate, two weeks to go to Costa Rica, all inclusive, which sucks when you can't wait, but sounds good. But but you're there, and mate, this for me, fighting is all about opportunities and going different places in the world we can never go to. Costa Rica, 100%, I go there. With my opponent, I didn't know. I knew it was Skip Kells, one of these little prodigies kind of thing. So I knew that he'd be pretty decent with his hands and stuff. I knew it was the 66 kilos, but when I saw the guy, huge, I was like, fuck me, he's massive. And I'm like, when I say massive, he was ridiculously big. But deceivingly was this. When I saw him, he was obviously wearing those like Americans long shorts down past their knee, can't see them at all, but he just had like top head bomb, like an absolute built like a diamond. But if you took his shorts off, he had the skinniest legs in the world. He's so skinny. And me, I've got quite big, fit, chunky legs. Yeah. So like that's where he's weight. It was top heavy. But even that said, he looked like he should be fighting at 170. He was big. He looked big. And like I say, I was a small 66 kilos guy, like, and I was soft. He was ripped. You know, the only time I got like proper, like looking ripped for a weight class when I went down to 61 kilos and also 57 kilos. That's when I was like really lean and muscular. But when I bought 66, I was a bit soft, you know.
So Miguel, how does that fight come about?
Well, you know, at this point, I think Brad, obviously, Cage Rage champion is on the radar. I think there were a couple of people from England on that shoot. Wasn't Mark Weir there and a couple of guys?
Like Rosie Sexton fought on that show. A young girl called Rosie Sexton.
So we were just trying to flex a little bit of international appeal there. We went, you know, I remember talking to Dave about getting fighters from Cage Rage, and Top Team could have recommended him as well. And JR, you know, when he mentioned Skipper Kelp, that means he's with Roy Nelson's camp. And they also gave me a couple of other fighters and things. So they're you know, 2 established camps, but I'm getting a first look at guys. So this is my first look at JR. Gilbert went by the name JR at that time. And
JR Sims.
My first look at Brad here in the in person too. So that's what it was. It's just a prelim match for me.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good bout, Miguel. It was definitely. So you go back to Europe, and Cage Rage is really expanding. Like they just every single time I bring this up, they're just getting bigger and bigger. And they decide to take on Wembley Stadium, and this might be the country's best card outside of the UFC going to Europe, and then I'm including Bellator in the conversation. And you fight Team Savage's Alex Owen, who on paper is 18-0. And that's I think he's a police officer from Europe, or from out that way. That was not an easy fight for you either. I mean, it went 3 rounds, but you came up on the short side of the decision.
For me, I look back at a few of my fights, and there's one fight to this day I believe I won. If you did it this way, nowadays it may be a draw. Because going back then, I was a bit. I went into that fight trying to prove that I'm a better grappler, and he was just a pure grappler. Not saying I was a better grappler, just showing that, look, I'm not scared of grappling with you. You know, I have good wrestling now and all that sort of stuff. I've developed so much more now. I can compete with you on the floor. So in a weird way, it's maybe tactical error. But in the first 2 rounds, I took him down at will, right? To be honest, he wasn't really trying to defend my takedowns because he was shit scared on the feet. He wasn't a striker. He was just a grappler. So he wouldn't fall over. And I said, for me, he'll throw up a lot of submissions, and I defended him and I would hit him a little bit. But for me, how I kind of scored it, I thought I won the first 2 rounds. The 3rd round, I lost 90% because he got me down. They took my back, body triangle me, and I was in a body triangle on my back for 4.5 minutes, defending the choke. And then in the last 20 seconds, I got out. But they're like, but 100% lost that round. So if you'd have scored, like nowadays scoring, maybe you would have scored me the first 2 rounds and him a 10-8 in the last round. Yeah, that's the stuff. But yeah. I lost that fight, which pissed me off. I thought I won, but then I was more annoyed with myself where I made it a lot easier than harder than it should have been. I was trying to prove a point that I could grapple with these guys rather than I could have been a bit more boring and just kept on my feet and just like not take him down because he had shocking stand-up, to be honest.
Well, here, what was that locker room like? Let me run through some of the names. So when we look at the card, one, it's a BoDog K1 Elite XC co-promotion. And when you look at the big stars, you've got Paul Daly, who won, Tom Watson, who took a loss, you took a loss, Cyril Diabate, who took a win, Ross Pearson lost against Abdel Muhammad, who was an Afghan freedom fighter, who, in my opinion, had a ton of upside, but had visa issues in Europe. So he never really got his moment or opportunity. But when you look at the totality of his record, he had the makings of a special fighter. Mark Weir beats Tahiro Matsui. Murillo Rua beats Alex Reed, who got a crazy cut on his shin. And James Zekic, Vitor Belfort, and Gary Turner beats Tank Abbott after Bob Sapp pulls out. Like, that card is insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Was that when Cage Rage was bought out by Elite XC at that time or not?
I think it was like a partnership, but something went bad. Like, it was a really quick, it was a real quick relationship that ended fairly fast, and kind of business returned to normal shortly after.
Elite XC bought Cage Rage, and then Elite XC went under, and that made Cage Rage go under.
So the one thing that, like, when I'm watching these cards, you've got Andy Gear, who is one of the co-owners of Cage Rage. And Ian Freeman is very stoic. You know, first guy from your country to make it to the UFC. He's got to win over Frank Mir. Certainly somebody that I think we can all agree, in terms of forefathers and legends in the sport from your country, he's in the conversation. So they have him announcing kind of who the fighters were, giving a little bit of a background. And they have Andy Gear, who looks kind of like, exactly like Ian Freeman, shaved head. Andy, let's just say he's playing a role in a movie, because I'm not going to say that he's doing this. If I were to cast a role in a movie, I'd say, okay, I need a really hyped up guy that just did a whole bunch of cocaine, maybe some meth, and snorted some Adderall. And then I'm going to place him next to a famous fighter, and we're going to kind of see how they react together. It appears to me that's what's going on. Like, he can't even keep his jaw together. He's all over the place. And Ian Freeman's like, you know, he's like the jungle gym while Andy's climbing all over him. And he's just like, well, here, this is what I know about the next fighters. Is this kind of the moment you knew Cage Rage was in trouble in regards to finances?
Honestly, I did not know. I mean, like, obviously, I don't watch. I'm fighting, so I don't really watch all the production as such, you know. So I didn't get to see that sort of side of things and stuff. I can imagine those shows, people are pretty on a different planet, if that makes sense. Yeah, I can 100% imagine it. Yeah.
When did you know Cage Rage was in trouble?
When Elite XC was in trouble, because it was Elite XC who bought Cage Rage, and they got in trouble with themselves. So because they owned Cage Rage, when they go under, it just takes Cage Rage with them. You know, so that's where they had Cage Rage had to fall by default. Where what do you call it? Dave O'Donnell, because the Cage Rage was his baby, he tried to keep Cage Rage in some way, but he couldn't. He weren't allowed to use their name at all. So he had to change and do another show, which was called Ultimate Challenge. So that's why he did a show called Ultimate Challenge. But he wanted to keep it as Cage Rage, but he couldn't legally by the name, because the name had gone under, you know.
So they have a couple events after that. And let's talk about some of the moving parts here. James Zekic, what is his reputation in Europe?
Yeah, it's big. It was good fun on the English scene, yeah.
See, Jeremy Horn describes him as somebody that is somewhat of a money collector that did fighting, like, kind of for fun.
Yeah, but he was a good talented fighter, if I remember. Good striking, very good striking, James Zekic.
Okay. And when you were with the American Top Team, do you have a lot of interactions with Jeff Monson at all while you're there?
Yeah. He's a fucking weird dude, but funny.
Did you give us a couple examples?
He does not act how he looks. He's very soft in demeanor, very quietly spoken, where his tattoos and looks speaks loudly, if that makes sense. He looks like, but he's very softly spoken, very nice, very calm, very chilled. I hear a lot of crazy stories, about him and stuff like that. And, yeah, but he's a funny dude. Who's probably a bit of a sex addict as well. You know, I heard that he'd have sex before fighting in the changing room. I'm like, how can you do that? You're fighting. Stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
I could see that.
yeah, so Dennis Hallman and he had an incredible relationship where at one point in our interview with Dennis, we thought Dennis was lying to us. We're like, there's no way that he would break into Jeff's car, steal his front car seat, create some sort of issue where Jeff needed his car immediately and Jeff would have to drive around on a bag of leaves. And Jeff would be like, yeah, no, that's true. That did happen. And then Jeff would like one up it with, and then I would go home and all of my furniture would be on my roof, including my cat. Like he was just, Jeff is one of those personalities where everyone that's ever encountered him has a story. And like you think, well, your story's unbelievable. Well, mine's more unbelievable. And both of the two people.
I wish I had something I could top those. But Mike Brown would have a few stories if you get to speak to Mike Brown, because I know for a fact he's got a few good stories about Jeff.
It's a funny thing, Jeff, but you're right about Jeff in that the demeanor doesn't match the body. Because even Mike, when we interviewed, Mike asked him, hey, you know, during that incident at the Gracie Arnold's, Helio Seneca sucker punched you, and he was literally like, yeah, but he's a little guy. That's what he said. You know, it didn't bother him at all that he'd been hit or anything. He was just like, no, it was a little like a pest, a fly, you know. But he didn't seem bothered at all. But yeah, he has some issues there.
And then he'll say, like, for instance, well, yeah, against Tim Sylvia, I wore a Wizinator. Yeah, it's true. It's true. And then like Dennis Hallman will say, Wizinator? Well, that's not even the tip of it. He was shooting urine into his bladder. And it's, hey, Jeff, is that true? Yeah, it's true. It's true. Like, there's just no care. It's incredible. It's
Brad, a Wizinator is a fake item that looks like a penis that he wore in his cup that carried fake, clean urine during the fight so that he'd be ready for the test afterwards. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't have a clue. I didn't even know what a Wizinator was.
There were rumors about. That's good. That's good on you, man. Trust me. But there were rumors for years about it. I asked him, and he just went, "Yeah, it's true."
Yeah, didn't care.
Yeah.
He's not a germaphobe. He's definitely not a germaphobe.
No, he's definitely not. No, 100% not.
So let me ask you: did we get to the Demetrius Johnson fight? I know you.
You know what? Demetrius Johnson's kind of later on. I've got 1, 2, 3. I got about 4 or 5 more Cage Rage and a couple UC MMA. Did you ever work out with? I know you said you started when you were 26. Did you have any dealings with Lee Murray?
Yeah, I went out with him a few times. Went to a night after the fights, nightclub, chatted to him a little bit. Yeah, I got with him. Okay, he was a nice guy.
Did you guys ever work out together?
Not work out. It wasn't my weight class. If it was my weight class, we probably would have changed. But because never mind. Weight class, we never did.
Were you guys in the same room though, working out?
Not at the same gym though. He used to train at London Shoot Fighters, so I never did. But at fight shows, after a fight show, we would go out to like a nightclub and all that sort of stuff. And we'll go and chat.
What was his reputation like on the indie scene? Not after the incident that put him obviously in prison, but what was his reputation like on the indie grind when you were going through it yourself?
Kind of like tough outside of the thingy. Be careful, big gangstery, you watch your way. You want to be on the right side of it as such,
So when we talk to the guys from Militich, like Jeremy Horn, they say, like Jeremy Horn, when we interviewed him, his response is, we never really saw that side. He was very polite, always said, please, thank you. He was a great training partner. And like he starts telling all these really nice things about Lee Murray, but like what you don't take into effect is that Miletich fighting system, to even survive the practice room, was incredibly difficult. So for a person to fly in from Europe and say, yes, I'm going to go work out with Miletich fighting systems before even understanding what that room is like, and to stay there, you probably had to have been top 5 in the world, because they tried to knock you out. It was a shark tank, and it was very clicky.
He would be quite used to that, because London shoot fighters was very same back in those days as well. Very similar. A lot of their fighters never made the fights because they'll get injured in training. Majority of their fights, people were getting knocked out the week of the fight. I'm like, why are you even sparring the week of a fight? Like they would get knocked out or get cut or badly because they're trained crazy hard up to fight time.
That's incredible.
So he was probably used to that type of training.
Yeah, but I mean, for him to even be mentioned, like, yeah, real nice guy, he fit in right away. It just tells you he must have just been killing people himself.
Yeah, I mean, like he was good. He was one of those people who had deceptive sort of power, very power in his hands, no doubt. Could lock out a lot of people and stuff like that. So and also he was tough, like mentally as well. So he wasn't shy of a challenge.
Wow. Okay, so you fight on Brock Lesnar's first MMA card against Soo Kim. And Royce Gracie, I think Royce Gracie's on the card as well. It was at Memorial Stadium for K1 Heroes Dynamite. It was a huge card. You fought Hideo Tokoro.
Yeah.
Do you remember pulling into that monstrous stadium?
It was mental. Like I got at one of my highlight reels. It's like I had to walk down. It was in the LA Coliseum, so I had to walk down these steps. Loads of steps.
It was huge. It was like a lot.
And when I got to the bottom, I got in a golf cart and they drove me to the ring. It was massive. And the thing that made it funny, it looked like it's probably one of the biggest crowds I fought in front of, but it looked empty because it's like a 19,000 seat stadium, but I think there's only like 40,000 people there, but it looked empty.
So it's a 77,500 seat venue, and 18,000 people attended.
And that's me. So it looked empty. Well, I remember, but I knew there was a lot of people there. So like, for me, it just looked empty.
Yeah, that was. I mean, obviously, I think this was in California, and kind of a homecoming for yourself. Like, it's a big card, a big opportunity, and big fighters do big things in situations like that. And you won by armbar, and it's another international.
I lost by armbar.
Dude, you lost by armbar.
Yeah. I wish I won by armbar.
I was going to say, you armbarred Tokoro? I was like shocked.
I apologize. I got my notes kind of screwed up. What did you take away from that fight?
I thought I fought lightweight, but no, I knew that Tokoro was in the same belt as me. It was a very small guy. It was a small guy. So it's weird where I didn't have, normally before fight, you have a stress of the weight cut and this and that. I didn't have that on my head. So I felt very chilled that whole week. It was very cool. And like, I remember at the weigh-ins, not even have to do much. I just didn't eat breakfast that day. And I would look over Tokoro before the weigh-ins. He's having a cup of tea. And I'm like, it was just a bit of a weird atmosphere. I knew with him as well how dangerous a grappler that he was. Dangerous grappler. But yeah, again, I knew he had a very good striker as well, but I knew that he can get intimidated quite easily. He doesn't like the fight, if that makes sense. If you make it very physical, he could crumble. So I remember just trying to, obviously that in my head, went out there trying to put it on him a little bit, and he was just got out of a few positions. Obviously, he was going for leg locks, and I got out of all that sort of stuff. And I can't remember what happened, how he done it, and he got the armbar so quick. But back then, he was a different level sort of grappler. Really, he was good. He was a very good grappler. So it sucked. It was a tough loss, but it was against in my eyes, a very, very good grappler, you know. So, but it sucked. It was the first time in my career I was on back-to-back losses, you know. So it definitely sucked for me.
Now, did you think? Did anyone have a conversation with you, whether loved ones, family members, teammates, in regards to maybe rethinking what you're doing for a living?
Well, after a loss.
Yes, you're 2 in a row.
Just myself. I chat to myself about maybe what am I doing. No, I don't think it's anyone else. Is anyone else's position to ask you what you're doing, really? Because it's very personal, you know. Like, you don't have to be the best in the world to do something. If you enjoy it and you enjoy doing what you're doing and you're earning money from it, do it. You know, it's a job. But for me, I didn't want to do that. I got into the sport to want to see how far I could go with it, trying to be one of the best in the world, or that sort of thing. So for me, losing 2 fights in a row just like sucked. And then what made it weird, my next fight wasn't on Cage Rage.
It was against Vaughn Lee.
Cage Rage. No, but it wasn't on Cage Rage. It was on Cage Rage Contenders, which is there. It was like, it's not like fighting on. It's like maybe I can compare it now. It's maybe you Conor McGregor fighting on pay-per-views, and then he loses a couple of fights, and now he's on a fight night. You know, that's what it was kind of like for me, going from Cage Rage, which is in the big shows, in the big stadiums in Wembley, going to K1 Dynamite, fighting the LA Coliseum, and then having to come back and fight in the Troxy, which is a small little venue, right? And it's where amateurs and pros fight, but all the lower amateurs. I was top of the bill, obviously, but I'm like, suffered 2 losses, and I'm fighting a guy called Vaughn Lee. I think at the time it was something like 7-2 or something like that.
6-3.
6-3. But having how it was, he lost his first 3 fights, and he won 6 in a row or something. I know he was on a really big win streak going into the fight. Can you see it there? Does it say?
Well, he hit 6 in a row, and I mean, let's really put it in a proper context. He later fought in the UFC and beat Nam Fan in China.
Yeah.
So, like, you're coming back going, God, I lost 2 in a row. Now I got to go fight on this lower level venue. I mean, you just fought in probably one of the biggest stadiums in the United States that's ever attempted a mixed martial art event in Memorial Stadium. And the promoters got you against a guy that later makes a UFC debut that could have easily upset you.
Yeah. And like I say, I was on a 2-fight skid, and he was on a 6-fight winning streak. You know, so I'm like,
it's almost like a passing of the torch.
Yeah, but for me, I didn't even look at that. I mean, I didn't even look into much footage of this guy, to be honest with you. I was just like, I was in such a bad mood with that fight, right? Such a foul mood. I remember I didn't even see him at the weigh-ins. Didn't care. Just, I mean, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, if I lose this fight, I'm done. You know, this is not for me. You know, I'll go and do something else. You know, for me, it's like, yeah. So I remember going into that fight in such a bad mood, and kind of fought a little bit like a dick, where I didn't care. It's not like me, where I remember one time I kneed him in the nuts, but in my eyes, I'm like, I didn't think I needed him in the nuts, but he was complaining, and I didn't care. So I carried on hitting him, and he fell to the floor. I mounted him. I started hitting him again. I elbowed him, and I wanted to do elbows. And I got pulled up by the referee, and I was like, oh, fuck off. I was in a generally bad mood for that fight. And I just remember, I didn't care. It's weird. I just didn't care in that fight. Like, come on, let's just fucking fight. You know, and I beat him up pretty good, you know. And I obviously then I won that fight. And then it kind of, I'm like, okay, cool. It was good. You know, I won the fight. You got my mojo back sort of thing. But I remember going into the fight, I was in a bad mood. I made him tap the strikes because I beat him up pretty good, you know.
Yeah, you ended it in the 3rd round. Did you two ever hang out afterward, or was that it?
Like everything is, and I'm always friendly with everyone I fight. I mean, for me, just because I fight you doesn't mean I don't like you or anything like that.
Of course.
It's far from it. So like we ended up training together. I remember bringing him out to American Top Team with me. We went to train American Top Team. We stayed in the same house together and that sort of stuff. And when he was getting ready to fight Kid Yamamoto, I was helping him with his training and stuff like that, you know.
That's good. That's really good. Now you're back in the cage rage system. You got some international experience. You know, you're back home fighting in Europe. Are you still doing your camps at American Top Team, even though you're fighting mainly in Europe at this time?
Always, yeah. Pretty much, I would always do all my fight camps in America. The reason I did that is because I mean, the only time I didn't go to America to train was my fight against making my WC debut, because I couldn't travel because of visas. So while I was applying for a visa, I couldn't travel to America. That's the only time I didn't have train out in American Top Team. But for me, it was just nice to get away from my day-to-day distractions of travel, of everything. So when I used to travel, when I used to land, it's like, boom, fight. All I'm now is here for a reason: eat, sleep, drink, train, and that's it. So just focus where. Back in England, you still have your day-to-day distractions and stuff like that. So I just did that to go away.
So did you pick up a job while you were here to kind of help make ends meet with bouncing at a bar or anything like that?
No, never had to. Okay, I earned a bit of money from playing poker, I guess. You know. Really? Yeah, but not like enough to say like it paid my way there. But you know, I always had enough money going out there, and I was giving my money. Like I say, whatever money I had, I reinvested it in myself.
So you go back to Cage Rage 27. They bring in an opponent from Italy. Where I'm looking at, I'm kind of researching the landscape at that time. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of people locally that want to fight you, and they're kind of reaching from out of the country. Where they pulled in Cristian Binda.
Yeah.
As an opponent. Is that true? Did you have issues finding local opponents at this point?
I just kind of thought most of the people were, and I was ranked #1 in like Europe at my weight class. So that to try and get some other people for me to fight. And there wasn't many people for me around to fight at my weight class, you know.
So after this fight, did you stick around for the main event, or do you get your fight and do you take your?
Oh no, I would have stayed around. Who was the main event?
So Phil Baroni fought Scott Jansen, where Scott Jansen's brother threw a headbutt at Phil.
Yeah.
What was kind of the behind the scenes kind of antics taking place? Because Phil likes, he's kind of a big mouth. You know, he's got that New York East Coast type attitude.
Which kind of surprised me. I know Phil a little bit as well, and I've trained with Phil as well. But he kind of like just took it, which I thought it might go mental, you know, like, but he just kind of took it and like get quiet, you know. Maybe a bit intimidated being in a different country, around those guys sort of thing. But yeah, maybe if it's in his country or if his friends around, maybe he might have acted differently. But he kind of just took it and accepted for what it was. Which if it was me, I'd be like, fucking hell, no way, someone's gonna get killed. You know, like, so you know, I found that so disrespectful, getting headbutted by someone's brother. It's like, how? Yeah.
So we had talked to Phil about this, and in essence, he was saying, I'm super happy I win the fight. His brother headbutts me. He's like, I'm so high on the fight, it doesn't even dawn on me what took place until like the airplane home. And I'm saying to myself, why did I let that guy get away with that? And he's like, it still kind of bothers me. Phil in our interview says it's still, that incident has not really left him. Like, it still bothers him.
Yeah, I can imagine that. There's so many times where, just in life in general, where you think, I wish there was something different to this guy. The guy was a dick, but in the situation, sometimes you just don't happen. Like I say, he was so, I won the fight and didn't care about that. So, yeah. But if the other guy did it, if Scott Jansen's brother did it to someone like Hector Lombard, it might be a different story.
No.
Okay, he just opened up the door, Miguel. were you at any of the Hector Lombard gym instances involving Josh Barnett?
No, not about Josh Barnett, but I have a book of Jeff Monson. Yeah, he not just like of Hector Lombard. He is one of the craziest men I've ever known in a gym. By far craziest.
Could you give us an example?
Oh, okay. For me, Dan Lambert loved him because Dan Lambert was his little pet, where he was like a killer, like in killing everyone in Bellator, just an absolute beast. So Dan Lambert tolerated his behavior because his behavior was just so erratic. But it's like, how would I explain? So like an owner has a pit bull, right? He's such a loving pit bull. He loves him. But every now and again, he'll just go off and eat some child. And then come back, oh, but okay, I love you. Okay, fine. Oh, good pit bull. That's what it was like. He had no off switch.
Did you ever notice that he somehow behaved much nicer around Dan?
No, he did. This I explain. He behaved really nice around everyone. But he just fucking boom. Boom. It's just pow. Like you can have a nice loving dog. It's just a squirrel, you know, like he could just switch, and it's mainly in the gym. He's like, I remember, right, before sparring, you have these light rounds, like warm-up round, right? First round sparring. Warm-up guys just moving around nice and gently, and I'd be like in the cage, and I'd be like moving around, and all I hear is what the fuck was that? And I look round, and do like that, stiff on the floor, and Hector doing this. What are you doing? It was a warm-up round. You just knocked this guy out cold. and like, that was him to a T. He's just like, anyone came in, like Bubba Jenkins would come in, like with all his wrestling credentials. Where is he? Let's wrestle. And like, he's half your size. What are you doing? Like, yeah, no, you could be the biggest, toughest guy in the world. He will try and kill you. You could be 150-pound female. He will kill you. He had no switch point. He had go or stop. That's what he had. Go or stop. Yeah. I lost.
So I actually sat next to him at a bare knuckle, the BKFC events, and it's my brother and I. And there's names on the chairs, and there's Hector Lombard. His name on a chair, and somebody else is sitting there. And I said to my brother, the smartest thing that person could do is to get off of that chair, because you just like he's a scary individual to where you can just hey man, look, it's a little cloudy outside. What'd you say?
Hey bro, my seat bro. You're like, I know that. Yeah.
And after the event, I told my gym, well, this is a win for me. I didn't get the shit beat out of me. Well, he's initiating conversation with me. All that is bait for him to go off, on myself.
All right.
My dog. Just let my dog out.
But interesting.
Yeah, no. He's. I used to have many debates with him. Like I used to love winding him up. Because he loves to chat, and like he has strong views on things. I've always play devil advocate with him, just to wind him up a little bit. I just really enjoy it. But yeah, I felt fine. With him, I never felt threatened, but I kind of knew what the trend was around. Yeah.
Hey, Brad, I got a question for you. Around the BoDog days, we talked about the JR fight, but one of the things that stuck out too about you was that they gave away like a voting type of at the end of the TV show, the person with the most votes got like a $50,000 bonus and stuff. And you walked away with that, I believe, with like 16 times more votes than the nearest competitor. So you had an early beat on social media and things like that. How'd you do that? Was it just being a little bit ahead of everybody else who was nowhere, or did you put a lot into it?
Their thing, what they did, they gave like $5,000 to best walkout, $5,000 for the best submission, $5,000 for the best fight, $5,000 for the best walkout, and that sort of stuff. And I won every category. And joint. I know one category I didn't win was best submission because mine was a TKO or whatever it was. But you know, I just went to, hey everyone, you know, to fight. If you do me a favor, could you vote on this? And all my friends and family voted. You know?
Okay. So Brad, the money's yours. The money. I mean, it's you don't have to return it. There were several people that got caught, and they hired firms like in Pakistan or India in order to create bots for voting. I think Nick Thompson actually did it and got caught doing it. Chael Sonnen may have been on that list. Did that ever cross your mind to do something like that to win that $50,000?
I swear on my child's life, I never did that. Never. I mean, like,
that's too bad.
I wouldn't even know how to do that. You know? Okay. All I did is just
let the people know.
Social media. That's all I did. Hey guys, help me out, vote on this. That's all I did. I used to do my social media back then. I think it was just Twitter. I think it was back then was the main thing. So Twitter and Facebook, I just posted on there. Hey guys, do me a favor, can you vote for this? That was about it.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, we got 3 more fights. I know you're tying up stuff at your house. We appreciate your time. Cage Rage 28, Antanas Jazbutis. They bring him in from Lithuania. Your cardio and pace look incredible. In this bout, did you make any changes in training?
I just kind of felt like I started to peak as an athlete, if that makes sense. Maturity is like, this is the thing we're fighting now, or just as a sportsman in general. You're young, you have all the ability, you have all the physique and that sort of stuff here. You're old, you have all the knowledge, and your body's ruined. You kind of get to this point at some point, and some people's ages is different. Some people peak at different ages. For me, I peaked in my early 30s, 31, 30, 32, that sort of age. From that fight leading into WC, I would say I was in my prime, you know, where I felt physically, I had the knowledge. Not, of course, I have way more knowledge now than I did back then, but the knowledge and the physicality were kind of like the perfect sort of alignment where I felt feel like, yeah, I could do something with myself, you know.
So Miguel, at this point, there's some local politics taking place, and Robbie Olivier has got the Cage Rage title, and when somebody has a title, they generally headline, and that's not in this instance. In fact, the co-main event was Olivier. Brad is after his fight, and Brad, you actually had, took the opportunity to call him out for a rubber match. Do you remember any back and forth in regards to positioning for the card in regards to when your fight went?
No, that wasn't me. That was just all them. They know that I can't help it. I'm just a way bigger draw, like.
That's what it is. Sell some tickets. Sell some tickets, Robbie.
No, it wasn't even just about selling tickets. It's about fighting styles. It's like, you're not going to queue up to watch Ben Askren. You will queue up to watch someone like a Hector Lombard or someone who's going to fight in that. For me, all my fights were exciting. Robbie, Oliver, only exciting fights he had were the ones I was in.
True.
So he wasn't really exciting to watch. So you have to understand, when you're in the sport, you need to understand yourself. You are a product. Your product needs to be sellable. So as a promoter, you want to buy the product because you want people to buy to view that product. So if your product's not valuable and no one really wants to watch that, you're not valuable to the promoter. So that's where people understand it. It's not just about winning. It's about how you win, how you conduct yourself, how you sell your fight. People don't. All my fighters I'm with now, I coach them and tell them, look, you need to make yourself marketable. You need to have something. You can't just be fighting. And then when you fight, you do need to be excited. There's many times in my fights when I was fighting, I'm like, it's a bit boring, maybe, but boom, and I'll break off and go, get us back to the field, let's fight. I'll do that subconsciously in my head, knowing that this is getting a bit boring. I'll hold this guy down here for another 2 minutes and win the round easily. But it's a bit boring, so come on, let's get back up, let's fight. You know, I've done that many times throughout my career. Even in the UFC, I do that because I know at the end of the day, it's an entertainment sport, and it is a sport. People need to watch you and appreciate you fighting.
If Robbie sold more tickets, he could make an argument. And that's it. That's the bottom line. I mean, as a local promoter, it is what it is, man. All right, so you fight Dino Gabatzis, who's a 2-0 Gracie Baja fighter, who game opponent. I think he broke his nose in the first round. And from there, you close out your independent grind with David Lee, who was an Eric Paulson student. I love Eric Paulson. And at this time, you're still with Team Titan and American Top Team. You're doing both of those. With David Lee, who later became a UFC veteran, were you expecting? What were you expecting going into that?
He was a UFC veteran when I fought.
Yes.
Yeah. So I didn't fucking realize how big he was. He was a big 66 kilo guy as well. Yeah, and I mean, like, looking back at that fight, I won that pretty well. You know, he was a tough opponent, and I guillotined him pretty quick. But he was ragdolling me. He was so big. He was ragdolling me for that little minute, for a bit. And I'm like, all right, okay, cool. But I stayed calm, and I'm like, I'll get you when I get you. And he left his neck out a little bit for me, and I got a very good guillotine. And I still got a piece of his neck. I'm like, all right, no, I'll got you. So that was that. So for me, it was actually a very, very good win against a dangerous opponent.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So now when you're bouncing and we're done with the fights, I know you got family stuff. So Miguel, we're going to kind of tighten this up a little bit before we let Brad go. So when you're working out with American Top Team and then you come home to train and work, how big of a difference in training partners was the experience between those two experiences?
Well, kind of like now, I was like, now there's a lot more really good athletes in the UK who don't travel and stay here because of people like me who went and traveled and came back and shared my knowledge, and now I have a team of guys here. So when I used to travel, towards the end of my career, to be honest, I probably didn't need to travel because I had built a strong enough team back in the UK. But I did travel just to get away from in England, I kind of run things, where in America, all I have to do is care about myself. Where in England, I care about other people. People get helping here, helping there, where being selfish, when I went away, I got away from all my day-to-day distractions and all that sort of stuff. And also, when I used to train at Titan, it used to take me an hour and a half to get there, hour and a half back, where an American Top Team, I stayed with Mike Brown, 20 minutes to gym, 20 minutes back. It just made it a lot easier for me to train there. But it was good that every time I went to American Top Team, I'd come back and I'd be sharing knowledge with my teammates and helping them. And now a lot of the guys I used to train with back then, I coach now, and they're part of my fight team now. That I coach like 50 other fighters here in the UK, and because of people like me who went and traveled and learned my knowledge, they don't have to as much.
Well, you spent a significant amount of time at a gym with some of the brightest fighting minds that the world has to offer, and now you've got the ability to give that knowledge to somebody else. And in a country where I think when mixed martial arts first kind of came about, Europe was behind, and not by a few steps, by a lot of steps in regards to, I think, us and Russia. And I think it's based on the wrestling base. And once you guys caught up, it was like, there's a new neighbor in town. But I think in the beginning of your career, you guys just didn't have that yet at that point.
No, we didn't have any. There wasn't even professional athletes. So like everyone who trained, like I did, would work during the day and train in the evening. So when I went out to America, this is the first time I ever trained twice in one day. Like apart from maybe going for a running in the morning and then training in the evening. America, you do 2 full-on practices a day. I never did that, because there wasn't the demand there. There wasn't enough people training. Like now, here in the UK now, I have my own team and we train twice a day. We have morning practice and evening practice, so we have training, So, but back then, no one.
Yeah. How did you pick the American top team to train at?
I didn't. Ricardo Laborio came to a cage rage once. I started chatting to the owners, and they said, "Hey, look, we'd love to send a couple of our fighters out there to come train with you." And they said, "Cool, send them over." They sent me. They sent Dan Hardy. They sent Paul Daly. Us 3 had gone out there, but I made really good friends there. I realized this is where I need to be. Not like Paul Daly, because he would just always go to Holland and train his striking. He's a really good striker. So go to Holland and train striking made no sense to me. I had striking. I needed to improve wrestling. So I went to America, which you have to do with wrestling. And like for me to this day, I think wrestling is the most important aspect of MMA by far, because wrestling controls the fight. Where if you're 2 really good strikers and I have better wrestling than you, I can take you down, I'm going to win. If you're a really good grappler and I'm a better wrestler than you, I'm going to keep on the feet. If you're a really good striker and I've got better wrestling, I'll take you down. So like, I think wrestling controls where the fight takes place.
That's good.
So
good. Is your buddy, is he in wrestling yet?
For me, everyone asks me, he loves sports. Don't get me wrong, all sports. At the moment, he's playing football, cricket, tennis, swimming.
Okay.
And he loves chess. He plays chess a lot. I hold some pads from here and there. But for me, where his passion is, I will feed his passion. To be successful in anything, in any walk of life, you have to have a passion for it. Have to want to do it. And at the moment, his passion is probably football. He loves football. Okay. So let's go football. He will 100% be around my gym and in kids' classes, because it is a genuine, important life skill to have, to be able to defend yourself, for confidence, for you and for others. It's good to have that, right? Because like that's the reason I got into boxing. I got into boxing not only to keep fit, because when I got into boxing, people don't mess around with you just by default, because he's a boxer, and they're going to leave him alone. So they'll just leave you alone by default. And then being the person I was, I kind of used that fighting tool as a bit of a vigilante. So I look after my friends and people who couldn't look after themselves. I'd be like, hey, leave that person alone. What are you doing? Kind of thing. So I use that way. So same with him. I think it's an important life skill to learn. If he wants to go on and compete, I will not one of the people go, no, I ain't getting my son getting in there. He can do what he wants, but he has to show a passion towards it. And if he didn't, think he'd have to take things seriously. I wouldn't let him do anything half-assed sort of thing.
Well, Brad, you're an absolute gentleman. Thank you for your time. We sincerely
appreciate it. It's fun. Took me down memory lane.
Well, that's the Cage Rage Chronicles, and hopefully in the future we get you for the WEC and UFC, your career. We really like to kind of document and get our hands dirty in regards to, people that have made names for themselves in the sport of mixed martial arts, and we're fortunate to have you as one of them.
No, it was a lot of fun, and I have a lot of knowledge that I even forgot about.
Yeah,
that's good.
No, we definitely want to have you back to go through the rest of your career, and I got some questions too about British pioneers and people from the past and stuff, just to bounce off these guys like Lee Hasdale and Lee Ian Freeman and stuff. So we'll talk shortly. Part 1 is in the books. Thank you very much, Brad.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks for having me, guys. Much appreciated. Cheers.
Wow, that was a great interview. I had a lot of fun going down memory lane. I love the old school guys. Just so amazing to hear how guys like him could do so much when he didn't even have proper training for so long.
You know, he's balancing his family. He's in Europe. So his kids are ready to go to bed. And he set aside a fantastic amount of time for us. And we got through the cage rage years. And he sent me a message afterwards stating, we're doing the rest of my career together, which, that means, well, not only enjoyed it, but he respects us as a podcast, as interviewers. So, well, we got to grease him up, Chris. We got to maybe get him on a Friday or Saturday, but he's been drinking just a little bit, just kind of open some doorways up.
We'll all have a couple drinks on the show. I'll be drinking. Here you go. We can drink water, say it's vodka, whatever you got to do, Mike.
Right. So, and you know what my favorite part of these interviews are? When they fight for Miguel, and I can go, so Miguel, what made you sign that fight? And there's always an interesting interaction because you get the matchmaker, the guy that sent the contract, and the talent that benefited from it. It's moments like that that kind of make these conversations special.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. Thanks for the props or whatever. But what makes him special to me is the fact is he did fight for me. He did work for me. And I feel like I just got to know him because we really took a deep dive with him. Thank you.
Yeah, guys, like, share, subscribe.
Also, people, try to make some comments here. I like to know what you guys are thinking. If you got anybody else who wants to talk to, let us know. We'll try and get them. So thank you very much. And like we said, keep listening. Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy.